Center is staffed by caring experts and the only center of excellence for bariatric surgery in Hawaii. Not only will they share their proven surgical weight loss plan, they'll help you through diet, exercise, and education. At Castle Medical Center, the doctors and nurses are more than just experts. They're lifestyle coaches who understand how much you want to be there for your son's graduation, your daughter's wedding, every baby luau that follows. Sound good? Good. Take the first step and visit castlemed.org or call 263-5176. Castle Medical Center. Exceptional medicine by exceptional people.
Hawaii's Business Authority, KGU, Honolulu.
Part of the Wall Street Business Network.
Covering the financial and business news you need to know.
With SRN News, I'm Keith Peters in Washington. President Obama says the U.S. is taking appropriate steps to increase security in the aftermath of the murder of U.S. Ambassador to Libya, Chris Stevens, and 3 other Americans.
We're working with the government of Libya to secure our diplomats. I've also directed my administration to increase our security at diplomatic posts around the world.
Republican presidential nominee Mitt Romney says he's heartbroken by the attack on the Americans.
This attack on American individuals and embassies is outrageous. It's disgusting. It breaks the hearts of all of us who think of these people who have served during their lives the cause of freedom and justice and honor.
The U.S. is also looking at whether the murders were the result of a planned terrorist strike to mark the anniversary of the 9/11 attacks. The assault was initially believed to be prompted by anger over an anti-Islamic movie. Egyptian-born Morris Sadek, who's been linked to the video, says he has nothing to do with it other than helping to promote it on his website and on certain TV stations.
If you make a book, you give, say, please write the introduction of this book. This is my role.
Meanwhile, 50 U.S. Marines are headed to Libya to reinforce security at the American embassy in Tripoli, while the Pentagon is moving 2 warships to the Libyan coast in response to the attack on the U.S. consulate. Officials say the ships, which carry Tomahawk missiles, give commanders flexibility to respond to any mission ordered by the president. Pentagon spokesman George Little says the U.S. military, quote, regularly takes precautionary steps, unquote, in these types of situations. Taking a look at the Wall Street numbers today, the Dow Jones Industrial Average was up by 10 points to close at 13,333. The Nasdaq rose by 9 points. The S&P advanced 3, oil down to 97.01 a barrel. This is SRN News.
Men, would you like to safely and easily lose belly fat without strict diets or rigorous exercise? Clinical studies show that men who boost their testosterone experience amazing results in reduced belly fat. That's right, testosterone melts belly fat. You've probably heard of some of the benefits of boosting testosterone, such as greater energy, increased strength and stamina, and even lower cholesterol. But chances are you haven't heard that increasing testosterone causes fat loss. Would you like to boost your testosterone and easily lose belly fat? Then try Andro 400. Listen to what Calvin from Las Vegas said.
I've been taking Andro 400 for about 3 months, and I feel amazing. Dropped 35 pounds, no aches or pains, and I have a new zest for life.
So men, go to andro400.com today and find out how you can naturally boost your testosterone and lose belly fat easily and inexpensively. That's andro400.com, andro400.com.
This week, Acura of Honolulu and Automart USA proudly announced the Salute to Our Military, an exciting event to welcome home our returning service members and thank all of our active duty, retired military, and their families for their service and sacrifice. Visit our stores and receive the special treatment you deserve, a $500 accessories allowance to dress up your new Acura with finance rates as low as 0.9% APR, or browse our huge inventory of pre-owned cars and get $500 off our lowest website pricing. With your new Acura, you'll get free oil changes for 2 years. And with every car sold to our military, we'll donate $100 to the Wounded Warrior Project to assist the soldiers who need it most. We'll have food trucks, fun, and a chance to win a new iPad 2 or a Neighbor Island sweetheart getaway to reunite a lucky couple. Military appreciation comes standard at Acura of Honolulu and Automart USA every day, not just 1 month out of the year. So don't wait. Stop by our easy-to-find locations today on Ala Moana Boulevard and get the special benefits you've earned.
Welcome to Think Tech Wednesday on the Think Tech radio series on AM 760 KGU, broadcasting across the islands and raising public awareness in Hawaii. Now here's your host, Jay Fidel.
Thank you, Jack Waters. This is Jay Fidel on Think Tech Hawaii. I'm so happy to be here on a Wednesday, a truly tech-energy Wednesday, okay, with Philip Johnson and Robert Brewer. Thank you very much, you guys, for coming down.
Thanks for having us. Yeah.
So we're going to talk about energy everything. Mm-hmm. We're going to talk about what you guys do in the Kukui Cup. So actually, Philip Johnson has been teaching computer science.
Right. I've been a professor of computer science at UH for over 20 years.
Over 20 years. You're having started in 1923, was it? How quickly the time she passes.
Right.
And Robert is actually a student, a PhD candidate, working under Philip Johnson.
That's correct.
So you got to be nice to him, yeah?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Everybody agrees on that. So the Kukui Cup it's a research competition. It's an innovation competition. It's at University of Hawaii, and you guys try to get people, kids, students to think of and research and design better technology for energy. Tell me more.
Well, we started about 3 or 4 years ago, and initially one of my questions was, how can we build better user interfaces for energy? Because the traditional user interface to energy is an electrical outlet, and that doesn't provide a lot of information, right? You put something into it and it either works or it doesn't. Mm-hmm. And with the coming smart grid and other innovations in the electrical space, we saw that there was a big need to start thinking about how can you present energy information to people in a way that really helps them. And so I went to a conference called the Behavior, Energy, and Climate Change Conference and came back with some ideas about how we could investigate this issue, wrote a proposal to the National Science Foundation, got it funded, and we're in our 3rd year now of this research project called the Kukui Cup, which has associated energy challenges that we have been running at the University of Hawaii for the past couple of years, and this fall we're doing it also at the East-West Center and at Hawaii Pacific University.
Doing exactly what, though?
Well, we're challenging the players, actually, because it turns out to be kind of a game. It has an online component, and it also has a real-world component where the players attend workshops or go on excursions or do audits of their room, and then they can log into the Kukui Cup web application or log into it through their smartphone or whatever, and they can get points, and they can see how other people are doing, they can make commitments, they can watch very short YouTube videos about energy and learn things, and we have a very Hawaii-specific emphasis. One of the things we realized when we were doing the research for this project is that Hawaii's energy challenges are totally unique, and you can't go on YouTube and search for energy and find content that really addresses the particular problems that we had. So we had to build all our content basically from scratch.
For example, if you look at a survey or a little questionnaire on energy on the mainland, they'll say, what's the number one use of electricity in your home, energy in your home? And the answer is home heating, always, on the mainland. Of course, obviously, unless you're on the top of Mauna Kea, that's not going to be the case.
Not here, yeah.
So there's really a complete change in the literacy content that we needed to bring people into, and also not just, there's just so many unique Hawaii issues. We're the most oil-dependent state in the nation, and yet we have this overabundance of renewable possibilities. So that brings a whole different conversation with students on energy.
So what do you tell them you want from them? If I'm in the class, okay, is this graduate students or undergraduates?
These are first-year students, so freshmen.
Oh, wow.
In fact, they've only been at the university this fall for about 2 weeks before the Kukui Cup started. So they're almost kind of like high school students, actually.
Yeah, sure.
And
don't say that to them.
No, they're not listening anyway.
Right. But we try to get them right when they enter the university, and that's one of, I think, the most interesting things about this is that if we can get them right at the beginning, we have a chance to influence things like what do they choose to major in, or what is their emphasis within whatever their particular major is. Because one of the cool things about energy is you can major in biology and you can do research on biofuels. You can major in economics and you can look at the economic implications of energy. You can, of course, be an electrical engineer. You can be a computer scientist. You can be anything and yet make energy part of whatever you're interested in as part of a particular discipline.
Yeah, that's one of the things that surprises me a little bit. By the way, I was only kidding about them not watching or listening, because they may be listening. If they want to call in and ask hot questions, use pseudonyms and the like, they can...
Bonus points. We'll give them points, actually, in the Kukui Cup if they happen to log in.
So here we are at 760 KGU, and the number is 296-5467. So, if you're in the class, you get points for this.
Yeah.
So I should maybe give you a little bit of the logistical, what they actually experience. So it's not a class at all. This is completely extracurricular for the students.
Oh, interesting. Right. But they get grades on it.
No, there's no grades at all.
No point. This is...
The points we're talking about are, we've basically created a game which is about energy, which encompasses all these different aspects. And so in the computer science and academia, these are called serious games. That is a game which has, in addition to its the goal of entertainment, which obviously that has to be there or no one's going to play it, but it also has another objective. You can be education, training, health, all these types of things. So there's this whole field of serious games. So we've developed this serious game, which is we call the Kukui Cup Challenge, and so what happened is we've installed meters, electricity meters on each floor of these 4 Halealoha towers at the University of Hawaii. So and we can see the energy use and the power usage at 10-second intervals. So it's real-time power information, but it's not at the level of a room. It's always aggregated at the level of actually a pair of floors. So there's no privacy. We can't see like what someone's doing in their room, and neither can the other the participants. So there's this energy aspect. So we're actually measuring the energy use. And for the energy half of the competition, the goal is to try to reduce your energy use so that you make a daily energy goal. So we have an energy goal that's set for every day of the week. And
so it's a personal competition. It's your personal use of energy in your room.
Right.
Is that what it is?
It's aggregated together so basically, as a team, your floor is competing in the competition.
I see. Got it. So it's floor against floor. Is that
floor against floor.
So that's one half of the competition, is this energy-focused part, and then there's also a point-based competition. So we created this web application, which has all these game components where they can watch little videos about energy, they can do activities, attend events, and for doing these things, they get points. And so, as an individual, you accrue points as well. So basically, if your floor does well in the energy competition by making that daily energy goal, then your floor can win like a pizza party, for example, or a pool party. But then also, as an individual, you can even if your floor as a whole is not participating, you can go wild on these activities and so forth, and you can be the highest scorer in the point competition.
And the highest scorer wins what? How much money?
Well, it's not money, but we have a series of rounds. But for example,
ask about the money.
Right. There's going to be an iPad 3. Is going to be one of the prizes.
That's something. Yeah.
But we also have.
Don't forget the iPhone 5 just came out. Right. So a lot of guys would like that more than the iPad.
iPhones are harder because you have the contract issue. If you're already under contract,
that's true.
So we've thought about the iPhone, but we've steered away from it because we can. They're logistical issues with giving people phones.
Yes. Okay, sorry.
I think you bring up the issue of money, and I think that this is one of the fascinating parts of this, is that when many people think about energy conservation and how to get people to conserve, they say, well, just give them a rebate, just give them some kind of incentive, make the cost of energy high enough, and of course they'll conserve. And in fact, Hawaii has triple the cost of the mainland, so we should be extremely energy aware and so forth, and yet we aren't. So I think that kind of argument doesn't hold water under scrutiny. Now, when you're doing a competition in the freshman residence halls, now you have a situation where you have all these people who are using energy whose parents are actually paying the bill, have no economic incentive at all. So that's a big challenge for us, is how do we get these kids to conserve energy despite the fact that there's no economic win for them. And so our hope is that if we can create such a compelling game that they won't play Angry Birds or they won't play World of Warcraft. They'll play the Kukui Cup instead, and through that learn not only that it's interesting to find out about energy and to conserve it, but also the higher social benefits of that we can then take that into the broader community, and then if we then combine it with these economic incentives, we'll have something pretty powerful.
So this is kind of course, it's for teaching purposes. You're trying to change the way they think, the level of interest in energy, and it's been going on for a while. It just started.
So we did the Kukui Cup in 2011 it was a sort of a 3-week competition.
Yeah.
And we're doing it again this fall. It's just started 2 weeks ago.
So and you go as long as you can on the grant that you have, I guess.
Right.
And each year you give some iPods or whatever it is to the winners, and then they move on. And the subset is in the dormitory, right?
Right.
I mean, it's not. If I'm outside the dormitory, living at home, I don't get to participate.
Correct. That's one of the unfortunately, that means most of the listeners here can't actually experience the Kukui Cup directly yet, though that's something that we hope to expand to in the future. But it also gives us this intense focus on this one group of around 1,000 students, and we're putting on workshops and events. Like, for example, we had an energy scavenger hunt last week, where what we do is we broke over 50 students attended, and each team got a small power meter. So it's one of these things where it's a plug load meter, so you plug it into the wall and you can plug anything you want into it, and it shows you how many watts that device is using. So the goal of the energy scavenger hunt was to find, for example, the highest using device you can. So people were running around looking for hair dryers and things, and also to find the most different levels of energy use in 10 watt increments. And so the idea obviously was fun because, like we said, you have 30 minutes starting right now. Go run off and find it. So first they're learning how to use this power meter. They're also having fun, trying to win this little competition. But they're also learning about energy literacy. And one thing that happened last year at the energy scavenger hunt was we had a smaller group, so we actually had each one read off what they had found. And one group said, "Oh, we measured a microwave and it said 300 watts," something like that. And the other team said, "Oh no, that can't be right because microwaves use much more than that." And all the other teams were reporting over 1,000 watts. So through this event, we knew that we'd increased the energy literacy of these participants. Like, they suddenly had an idea of how much does a microwave use, which is something that most people don't understand.
So, I guess first I want to ask, what do you guys bring to this? I know you're a computer science professor. In fact, we've had time together on boards.
Right.
That was somewhere in that 20 years.
When we were younger.
And you're like a famous computer science professor. And Robert, you already have lots of advanced degrees anyway. So
no, this is my first. I'm working on my PhD. I have a master's degree in computer science from UH.
So it's all derived out of computer science, then, huh? That shows you that there's a place for computer science everywhere.
There is.
We'll get back to this after the break. We're going to have a little break now, and we'll continue to explore the subject. And you guys out there, you won't know what we're going to talk about until after we come back, when we will tell you. Stay right there.
760 KGU.
Part of the Wall Street Business Network.
We've got one new accident reported. This one's on the H1 eastbound in town at the Punahou exit. If you're coming in from that direction, the H1 slows at the east end of the airport viaduct. The Moanalua slows right as you get to the Middle Street merge. From the east side, the H1 slows at UH. No problems going east or over to the windward side. And if you're going west, the H1 slows at the Hickam curve, the Moanalua at Moanalua Gardens.
Think Tech Radio is also sponsored by PacificCap. PacificCap, Hawaii's largest locally based venture capital firm, provides early and later stage financing for Hawaii's high-tech, emerging growth and alternative energy companies. With market focus, experience, and perspectives that are global, PacificCap's roots and heart are local. PacificCap, a local venture capital firm funding Hawaii's global opportunities.
You're listening to Think Tech Radio's Technology and Media Wednesday with your host, Jay Fidel of Bendit Fidel Attorneys at Law.
Hello, this is Jay Fidel. We have Robert Brewer. Say hi, Robert.
Hi, this is Robert.
We have Philip Johnson. He'll be back in a minute. And we are talking about the Kukui Cup, which is an energy computer science type competition, fun competition at UH for the residents there. And we are going to go into a further discussion of it right now. And I'd like to know from you, Robert, exactly what is the computer science aspect of what you're doing?
Sure. Well, one thing about computer science is it's actually a fairly big tent. There are people in computer science who study chips, and how to build microprocessors and so forth. And there are also people, like us who mostly study, in some ways, we're studying humans, really. We're studying how computers and humans interact. There's a whole field called human-computer interaction. So that's one of the things that's, I think a lot of people have the misconception that computer science is like, oh, you build operating systems and that's it, or you work with wires and chips and so forth. And certainly there are lots of computer scientists that do that, but we're sort of more on the human side, the human factor side of things.
The interface side of things.
Right, which is critical, right? I mean, computers exist to serve our needs. So to the extent that they aren't meeting our needs as humans, then that's a big problem.
Yeah, absolutely true.
And our team is also interdisciplinary in nature. So we have people from communications, people from the business school, people from the art department, and so that's another interesting part of this project is that as computer scientists, we couldn't bring everything to the table that was required to do this, and so we could enlist the aid of these other folks.
We interviewed a woman named Sheba Namji, who's part of Code for America, just out here for a few months, and she was talking about the degrees you can get in Stanford on computer science. I mean, it's amazing how the science has broken down into subsets. I mean, you want to talk about interface, we can get a PhD in interface.
Right.
And then you want to talk about blue interface, you can get a PhD in blue, green, red.
Right.
I mean, it's really broken down.
Well, my research group was software engineering for 20 years, and I'd been leading research specifically with respect to how do you build large, complicated systems. And one of the great things that having Robert in my group has led to is the idea of, let's build this large, complicated system, which we know how to do because that's what our research group has a core competency in, and let's apply it to this social problem. And in fact, that turns out to be one of the things that the Kukui Cup project brings to the table that a lot of these other energy-focused groups don't have. They don't have built-in developers who can take an idea. I mean, literally on Monday we had this idea for what we call a variable point referral bonus. And we pitched it in a meeting. Monday
part
afternoon,
of the Kukui Cup.
Part of the Kukui Cup, and it was implemented in the system by Tuesday morning.
All right, that's what I like. Don't fool around.
Yeah, when we go to conferences, we often speak to colleagues who are doing similar, energy competitions and energy interfaces, and often they may be not in the computer science department, they might be in communications or environmental psychology and so forth. And one of the things we tell them is, they say, oh, well, who built your system? And we're like, oh, well, we built our system. And they're like, oh, that would be like their fantasy, because they have this idea of what the system they want to make, and then they have to communicate that to usually some external development group, which they might be contracted to do, and then they have to pay them, and then they build something and give it back, and then it doesn't quite do what they need, so they have to give change orders and so forth, and that's a whole process that is all internalized in our group. So that gives us, as Philip said, a huge advantage to in order to be agile in this.
Yeah, it's all about that. I mean, if you want to make a million billion, you have to be agile, don't you?
I think so. Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. It's sort of like, kids come up and they say, "Oh, I want to be a basketball player or a football player, or a rock star, because I make a million billion." What they don't realize is that there's a whole pyramid going on.
Right.
And it's one out of 100 million people who hit the big time. And so it's the same thing in computers, isn't it? Most of it is perspiration, and not everybody gets to be Bill Gates.
Right. And you have to sometimes be in the right place at the right time, and you just have to surf the right technology wave at the right moment.
So how is computer science, to take a digression, how is computer science doing? I remember 5-10 years ago, Bill Gates did travel the country. He went to college campuses all over trying to recruit kids to take maybe high schools too, to take major in computer science because he was concerned there were not enough computer science students in the country, and we were falling behind because of that. Is that still true? Was it ever true?
Yeah, in our department back in the the good days, we had about 700 majors, which made us, as a department, bigger than most of the schools at the university. And our department had more majors than any other single department in the system. Now we're down to about 400, which still makes us, quite
the
big.
reason.
And the reason, I think, is that there was a period of time where people thought, I can make $1 million if I have an undergraduate degree in computer science. Back when the internet bubble, the dot-com boom was happening. Now I think everybody has recalibrated their expectations, which is a good thing. But I think that computers are now ubiquitous. Every kid has a smartphone, or most kids have a smartphone, and they recognize that this is a computer, and they recognize that there's so many opportunities for them if they're engaged appropriately with technology to make a difference, in no matter what field they're in.
No, I mean, how much trouble is it to go down to the store, or, in fact, forget the store. Bookstores are out. Go on the web and find some articles and books about how to program an app.
Right.
Any stunko can do that, I'm sorry to say. Which means that any stunko can be a Bill Gates if he hits the right app.
Yeah, see, I think, on one level, I think you're right in that computer
science... with me and tell me I'm completely wrong.
No. I think computer science is, or software development, I think, is really interesting because it is one of those few remaining professions where you can be a self-taught, I mean, you can't imagine someone being like a molecular biologist without having ever gone to school.
True.
So computer science, I think it's actually possible to, get some books and teach yourself. But I think and I guess I have a vested interest in this as a software engineering faculty member, I think that the investment in going to school and, finding out what others of the past 40, 50, 80 years have figured out before you, that in a short period of time, 3-4 years, that gives you a leg up on those people that are going to reinvent the wheel for maybe 10, 15 years before they finally kind of figure out what it is that they're going to make their $1 million.
Chances of success are greater if you know the history of it.
One would think.
One would hope. Because we all grew up with that anyway.
On the other hand, maybe sometimes you need a fresh perspective, and so not having that, the ideas imposed on you of these aged faculty members is a good thing.
Well, let me offer a thought that I've had about UH. Maybe it's the same everywhere, but so if you went to the geophysics department, Geophysics Institute, whatever it is, or IFA, I mean something scientific.
Institute for Astronomy.
Yeah. You would find there's a lot of guys there who do do coding.
Absolutely.
They're right there.
Absolutely.
And they probably, I don't know if they do it and teach it or just do it.
Right.
But it's there.
Oh, yeah.
And so what's happened is computer science has permeated the entire academic structure, because what self-respecting department in the university could get along without having computer programmers inside doing that?
Well, what you find actually is many departments will have programs where they take the name of the program and they'll prepend computational. So you take linguistics and you get computational linguistics, which is the application of computer science and mathematical techniques. So you take biology and you get computational biology. We kind of think that computer science is one of those core skills like English or math or whatever that kind of everybody in the 21st century has to have some working knowledge of.
Just for curiosity, Robert, what is your PhD about? What's the subject of it?
It is the Kukui Cup is the subject of my PhD.
Is that right?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
So what are you learning about what's happening with these kids? I mean, what's the takeaway from your point of view? We know they're going to learn about computer science, and they're going to learn about energy for sure, but what are you learning?
Well, actually, I wouldn't say for sure. I mean, that's one of the questions. This isn't a class, right? There's no grade, so the typical ways you get people to, pay attention, at least in an educational environment, is there's some reason that you have to get credit for it. So that was a big question for us last year, which when we did the first Kukui Cup, the issue was, how do we make sure that this is just so awesome that we're going to get people to participate? So that was a really serious concern of ours, was like, what if we put this thing on and 5 people actually go for it? We've spent all this money installing meters. We've done all this preparation and planning. So the first year, it was really about can we actually do this and be successful? And one of the ways we measured that, evaluate our progress, was by providing an energy literacy survey, which we sent to a random sample of the students before the competition and after the competition.
You had to know the baseline. I was going to ask you about one. So just to digress off that for a minute, what did you find in terms of their level of sophistication about these things?
It certainly varies. I mean, there are students that...
Is that a way of saying it's not impressive?
It is not impressive. And I think, to some sense, I don't fault them for that. That's just a general... The general population doesn't know about energy in many ways. Yeah. So, and that's why we're doing... If they knew about it, then there wouldn't be reason for us to do the Kukui Cup. So we did find that that there was a modest improvement in their energy knowledge of the people who participated in the competition compared to people who didn't participate in the competition in this pre and post evaluation. So we do have some evidence that they did actually learn some things through the competition, which is useful. I mean, obviously there are many ways you can evaluate the Kukui Cup, and this is one of the sort of more scientific ways we can do that.
You could have picked any other kind of discipline or subject matter, but you picked energy. Why did you pick energy for this project?
I would, at least for me, it may be cliche in this area, but it was watching An Inconvenient Truth was really the turning point for me. I'd always tried to thought of myself as an environmentalist and recycled and so forth, but my life, my career wasn't revolving around that. And I saw An Inconvenient Truth, and I thought, this is really the problem of our time in many ways. And why am I not, if I'm going to go back to school and graduate school, why shouldn't the subject of my research be that and not something else?
Disruptive.
Right.
I had the same experience with that movie. I'll tell you a short story. I was sitting in a restaurant with friends of ours, and they said that this movie was playing. I was ignorant. I didn't know about this movie, and they told me about the movie, and then we had dessert, and I left the restaurant, so I go see it.
Oh, wow.
I left everybody back there. I had to see it.
Very good.
And it was just as disruptive as it could be.
Yeah.
And then as a computer scientist, that's what I know. So my question was, how can I contribute to this? There's a lot of ways. Like, I'm not an electrical engineer, so I'm not going to develop a new kind of solar cell or a new energy storage technology. I'm also not. There's also, as you mentioned, like the SOST, the School of Earth, Ocean Science and Technology, does enormous amounts of really great work in climate, in the area of climate change. And so they're mostly doing things like modeling, like showing that it actually is happening and what will happen as things go forward. And I felt like I wanted to go beyond just sort of like observing this climate change and modeling it. I wanted to actually try to prevent it. Yeah. And so Philip and I were brainstorming. I spent like probably 2 years trying to figure out how can we use what skills we have to make an impact on the problem of climate change and energy.
Yeah. Aren't you worried that we're going to take a break now. I'm going to worry like crazy. and the worry I point out to you is that people used to be real excited about climate change and around the time of Al Gore's movie, and real excited about energy and clean energy in Hawaii around the time of the initiative in 2008, but they have kind of slid down that slope, and they're not so excited. And I'd like to cover that and how that relates to your project right after this very important break.
Can't wait.
This is Think Tech. That's Robert Brewer and Philip Johnson. We'll be right back. Stay there.
.760 KGU.
Part of the Wall Street Business Network.
If you're headed to the windward side, we had an accident earlier on the Pali Highway by the Queen Emma Summer Palace. That should be out of the way by now. Otherwise, no problems to Kailua or Kaneohe on any of our 3 roads, and it's mostly dry up in the mountains this afternoon. Going west, the H1 slows at the Hickam Curve, the Moanalua slows at Moanalua Gardens. Do have one problem in town. We had an accident a little while ago on the H1 eastbound at the Punahou exit.
Pacific Biodiesel has been a leader in American biodiesel production since 1996. We were the first to bring biodiesel to the retail gas pump, and we're breaking new ground every year, opening new facilities, including our state-of-the-art Big Island Biodiesel Refinery. This facility will produce the industry's highest quality biodiesel using Pacific Biodiesel's super efficient zero-waste process. Our sustainable biodiesel production is vital to Hawaii's clean energy goals. Pacific Biodiesel makes clean, renewable fuel from Hawaii restaurants' used cooking oil, which is then sold and used right here in the islands. When you recycle your used cooking oil through our partner Cleanway, you're doing your part for a cleaner and greener Hawaii. For more information on supporting locally produced, cleaner burning fuels, visit biodiesel.com.
You're listening to ThinkTech Radio's Technology and Media Wednesday with your host, Jay Fidel of Bendit Fidel Attorneys at Law.
Okay, we're back. This is ThinkTech here on a Tech Wednesday. We're talking about the Kukui Cup, but we're also talking about how that kind of relates to, engages with the whole issue of energy. And that's what I'd like to talk about now. So, Philip, you picked energy. Energy is definitely mainstream, but energy also has a way. You know what the words mini tekel and farsaid mean?
I do not.
No.
Those are the words that were written on the famous wall. Those are the words. And you know about you write on the wall and then you move, writ and move on.
Yeah.
Those are the words that were writ before. I don't know what they mean, but...
Okay.
So we got very excited about energy a few years ago, about climate change a few years ago. What you're doing is mainstream on that, but do you sense, as I do, that the generations coming up, they have to be reminded of it?
Yeah, I think it's very interesting, particularly in Hawaii. Hawaii is 90% dependent on imported fossil fuels, and that's a fairly well-known fact. What's not that well-known is that the number 2 state is 17% dependent. So it's not like the number 2 state is 80% dependent. We're leading by several multiples. And recently in the past 6 months or a year, there's been a lot of talk about the fact that the U.S. as a whole is importing less of its fossil fuels from the Middle East or Asia or other places, because there have been lots of gas resources discovered and new ways of extracting it and so forth, and that's created worries amongst the renewable energy advocates that in fact the cost of fossil fuels is going to fall and it's going to become less important, or people will lose their interest in renewable energy, and I have a lot of fears about that, because in our specific situation here in Hawaii, we're importing $6 billion of energy per year. That's money that's being sent elsewhere.
To people who might use it against us, I might add.
Yeah, but even so, it's going outside our state. And even if we're importing more of our energy from the U.S. mainland in the form of gas or whatever, it's still being imported. It's still going to be some multiple of the cost for the mainland. So my worry is that people will read the mainland newspapers and go, oh, we don't have to worry about renewable energy issues in Hawaii anymore. But in fact, the situation hasn't really changed for us. We still will benefit tremendously by transitioning to using local sources of energy, and our future is much less clear if we continue on this path of expecting ourselves to be always able to easily import cheap forms of energy from the mainland or from other places in the world.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. And this is the most significant transformation, the most significant event that Hawaii has really ever had. And it tests us, it tests to see whether we can stay focused or get distracted. And I join you in the worry.
Well, I tell you, I can tell you a fun story. I just heard this on the radio a couple days ago. It was an interview with the president of Iceland, whose name is Oliver Grimsson.
They have plenty of geothermal there, don't they?
They have a lot of geothermal. He was saying when a few decades back, Iceland was in the position of importing 80% of its energy in the form of fossil fuels from other places. Now they get all of their electrical energy and all of their heating energy from local clean energy sources, and over the next 10 years, their intent is to transition to electric vehicles, which will mean that all of their land-based activity will be based on clean energy. So, in fact, in the space of about 30 years, which is the time frame of the Hawaii Clean Energy Initiative, there is this country, Iceland, who went from 80% dependency on fossil fuels to almost 100% clean energy. So we have this example of a community that's made this transition successfully, and that gives me a lot of hope that in Hawaii we can do the same thing. Now we have some geothermal, and geothermal has certain advantages because it's a firm energy source, and we have to have more of a mix of firm and intermittent sources like wind and solar, but I still think it can be done.
Oh, sure.
I was going to say also, Iceland has much higher requirements because of the heating, right? We don't have that same level of, when you look at surveys of energy use per capita, Hawaii is usually fairly low in the United States because there's that whole, area of use that we don't have.
Right.
But, to build on that, I think if Hawaii doesn't solve its energy situation, like the tourism industry, it's hard to see how, if electricity and fuel prices just keep going as up and up and up as we expect them to do, like Hawaii will become an increasingly less desirable place to visit, just because it will be too expensive.
In the end, it's life and death for Hawaii.
Exactly. Yeah.
If we stay on the same course, we're in big trouble.
Yeah, and energy affects everything. Energy affects our food costs. It affects our medical costs. It affects, our ability to have high-paying jobs. It's this tremendous drag on our economy. The other great thing about the Iceland story is that the president explained that they save the equivalent of their gross domestic product every 10 years. And in fact, Hawaii currently is exporting about 10% or $6 billion of its gross domestic product every year. So in fact, even in the economics of it, we look very much the same way that Iceland did before they made this transition. And if we make that transition, now we have these billions of dollars that we can use locally, invest in other kinds of infrastructure and so forth.
We should study them.
Yeah.
We should bring them here and make them tell us how they did it.
I bet you they'd love to come here and talk to us.
Especially in the winter. Well, I think this is this is worthy thing for you guys and for the university in general to get involved in this issue. I can see at least, there's a contact with every science really, but computer science has greater leverage somehow. I always like to say that energy is the tech was supposed to be. In many ways, tech went away, but now we have energy.
It's interesting when you look at the Department of Electrical Engineering, which historically was all about electrical engineering, creating electricity. And then with the microprocessor revolution, they became basically almost like a branch of computer science, and a lot of computer science departments fused with electrical engineering because they were making the chips and the computer sciences were making the algorithms and so forth. And now, in fact, there is this new interest in power, and electrical engineering is returning to its roots in a lot of ways. And at the University of Hawaii, we're hiring new faculty who have an interest in renewable energy and power into electrical engineering. There's a great research group at the University of Hawaii called the Renewable Energy and Island Sustainability Project, which is led by Professor Tony Koo, who's the chair of electrical engineering. And they're doing great work across a lot of different domains with respect to renewable energy. They're doing wave energy studies, solar energy, wind energy modeling, lots and lots of interesting stuff there.
Well, a footnote is that we're doing a program, the Think Tech program with the Hawaii Venture Capital Association on September 27th, the Plaza Club, one of our regular luncheon programs. And this one, it's called the Emerging Energy Also-Rans. and not a lot of people in that category like to be called that. But then we say, are also important. And they are. Some of them have not reached commercialization. They haven't earned a dime yet. They haven't gone on the grid. They haven't cut a purchase power agreement, anything like that. But they have fantastic prospect. And the one that comes to mind when I say that first is OTEC. If you look at ocean thermal energy conversion and see the promise of it, it could be lighting up our whole state. At once it's in place at very little marginal cost. So it could change everything, and that's the exciting thing about energy. You don't know what it's going to look like in 5 or 10 years.
Right.
But you guys do, and you can participate in that. You can participate in the interfaces with people. in all the metrics that happen, in all those grid devices that are, that Hitachi is selling Maui right now.
Right.
We could be doing that ourselves at home. In the measurement of climate change and the measurement of how efficient we are, and in, devices that would actually do energy. I can't think of anything offhand, but, for example, storage.
Right.
Monitoring a storage device with computers that could make it actually perform and smooth out the curve.
Yeah.
So I mean, you probably will be right in the middle of that, and I see Hawaii as a great test bed, great laboratory for all of that. And to go to the larger point, we all have to stay focused on it and make it happen here. But I warn you, there are people who want to go back to coal. There are people who look at the cheapest, source, whatever it is. That's all they care about.
I read a letter to the editor in the Star Advertiser, Star Bulletin, Star Advertiser, a week or two ago, and the writer was saying, look, sustainable energy is cheap energy, and I think that on one level is true, but it really depends upon your time frame. And I can give you a personal anecdote about this, because last year my home residential energy cost was about $125, $150 a month.
It's
on
cheap,
average. It's pretty cheap
against other people. I tell you.
And this year my average monthly electrical costs are about $1,200 a month.
Oh.
Okay. Now the reason for that is because we had PV installed on our roof, so I spend about $14,000 this year to put this on our roof, and so my average cost for this year are quite high. And so the writer that says, sustainable energy is cheap energy would say, why would you ever do that? Well, the point is, in the time frame of a year, it looks crazy, but over the time frame of 25 years, which is the expected lifespan of my solar system, it's going to be an incredible winner for me on the cheap.
Imagining having an electrical
bill
bill for $16 or $18 a month, that's pretty good.
That's what we have now, but we have to pay off our PV system. So I think that one of the things that we're trying to do with the Kukui Cup is to enable people to have a more sophisticated viewpoint towards these energy issues, maybe look a little longer time frame, and then be able to see that sometimes a short-term investment has these incredibly positive long-term implications.
And in the same way, sometimes a short-term break has an incredibly positive effect on everyone in the room. So why don't we try that out here for a moment and have a short break. We'll be right back. This is Think Tech. Stay with us.
760 KGU.
Part of the Wall Street Business Network.
Had a couple of problems earlier, but right now traffic looks very typical and your afternoon commute should be normal. Going west, the H1 slows when you get into the Hickam curve. The Moanalua Freeway slows in Fort Shafter Flats. The H1 lets up when you get to the Ka'ahumanu overpass out in Pearl City, and from there you're fine to the west side or up to central Oahu. No problems to Hawaii Kai, and we're looking fine to the windward side.
Remember when you were 17, in great shape and feeling good? Not a care in the world. Well, here it is today, and there's a growing family to take care of. Of course, you've done some growing too, but many of us do gain weight as we get older. 20, 30 pounds, 40, but 100 pounds? Deep down inside, you know how serious it is. So it's the right time to get back into shape and be there for your family. The Surgical Weight Loss Institute at Castle Medical Center is staffed by caring experts and the only center of excellence for bariatric surgery in Hawaii. Not only will they share their proven surgical weight loss plan, they'll help you through diet, exercise, and education. At Castle Medical Center, the doctors and nurses are more than just experts. They're lifestyle coaches who understand how much you want to be there for your son's graduation, your daughter's wedding, every baby luau that follows. Sound good? Good. Take the first step and visit castlemed.org or call 263-5176. Castle Medical Center. Exceptional medicine by exceptional people.
Think Tech Radio is also brought to you by InmoB. Since its inception in 2007, InmoB has grown to become the world's largest independent mobile advertising network, serving over 100 billion mobile ads to date. It has built its product in parts of the world where the mobile phone is not just a screen, it's the only screen. After launching in the US and Europe in 2010, InmoB has more than doubled its global network from 7 billion to 60 billion impressions monthly, and has offices It's on 4 continents, in Bangalore, Johannesburg, and London, in Nairobi, New York, and Paris, in San Francisco, Seoul, Singapore, and Tokyo. InMobi.
You're listening to ThinkTech Radio's Technology and Media Wednesday with your host, Jay Fidel of Bendit Fidel Attorneys at Law.
Yeah, we're back. This is Jay Fidel, ThinkTech, and that's that InMobi. That's quite a company, you know. They operate by chat room across the world on multiple continents. It's fantastic. Kevin Hughes in a small office there in the Manoa Innovation Center. Unbelievable. You know about this, Robert?
I don't.
Oh, I'll tell you after the show about Kevin. He's my favorite
I know about
sponsor.
Kevin, yeah.
Okay. Anyway, so, have these kids coming through the program, and you're designing the program to have, I guess, a maximal effect on them. This is, at the end of the day, it's teaching, but it's life teaching. It's trying to change the paradigm of their lives, not only what they know, but what they do and what their community does later on. So tell us how that works with these kids.
Well, I guess we do. One thing is that we've changed this year from last year. Last year it was a 3-week competition, so it's obviously a pretty short period of time to make the kind of impacts that we want. So this year we've changed, and we're doing it's a year-long competition. So it started on September 4th, the day after Labor Day, and it'll run until May 1st. So that gives us a lot more opportunity to reach students. Even like students can come on, like someone could start in the spring semester and earn points and learn about things. The other thing we're doing is, because we have the longer time frame, is we can incorporate things from their curricular activities. For example, in the later portions, the rounds of the Kukui Cup, you'll be able to get points by registering for a sustainability class, and we're going to let the players explain why they think this particular class is related to sustainability.
And they get points on that one.
Correct.
I mean, college credit points.
Right. They'll get credits for their classes, of course, but they'll also get points. I'm saying points in the Kukui Cup.
Both.
Right. Exactly.
That's great. Double whammy.
So I think this is one of the paradigm-changing aspects of serious games in general, is that what you're trying to do is create something that people enjoy to do because it's intrinsically interesting and motivating and satisfying, and you gain skill, and you have increasing challenges. So there's all these kind of components of a good game, but the goal is actually to create people that are contributing to some kind of societal good. And in our particular situation with the Kukui Cup, we believe that the issue of energy in Hawaii is very important. We're not coming in with a priori stance that, in fact, we should have wind power, or we should have an inter-island cable, or we should build all these things on Molokai-E or whatever. But we are saying that our current situation of being so dependent on fossil fuels is unsustainable and is bad for our quality of life and for the Hawaiian community in general over the long term. So what has to happen is all of us have to get together and start trying to figure out, what should we do? Maybe none of the current kinds of solutions are appropriate, and somebody has to innovate something completely new. And via the Kukui Cup, what we're trying to do is expose as many students as we can to the fact that energy is really interesting, and that you can approach it from all these different kinds of angles. It's not just about electrical engineering. There's opportunities for people in economics, there's opportunities for people in psychology, there's opportunities for people in biology, and so forth.
You can build your life around it, doing the right thing, doing what you really care about.
Yeah. And I think the framework itself, the Kukui Cup technology that we built in our lab, in fact, doesn't actually specifically require you to be learning about energy. So we could be having a Kukui Cup that concerns itself with water use in Hawaii, which is another big issue. We could have another Kukui Cup which focuses on the issue of local food, and those particular issues, or waste. And so, I think that there is a place for a classroom and grades and degrees. I'm a big proponent of that, of course, as a professor, but I also think that we can create educational environments that are fun and engaging and take people away from Facebook and take people away from World of Warcraft or however else they're kind of using their downtime, and instead engage them in something where they're learning something that they can really apply and create a better discourse in our community about these particular issues.
Yeah, so if I came to you and said, Dr. Johnson, what exactly am I going to get out of this program? How is it going to change me? And tell me now. Tell me in 30 seconds. Or a minute. Take a minute. What do you want me to take away from this? What's your advice to me in my life going forward, academically, personally, and in the community?
Well, I think that it's very important to realize that in Hawaii we're living in a very special environment, and there's a very special host culture. We have very special kinds of economic constraints and opportunities. We have very interesting kinds of technological constraints and cultural constraints and opportunities. And that what we want people to do is to work within that framework to try to all kind of paddle together. I'm a paddler, so I often go back to that analogy. You got 6 folks in the canoe, and you've got to all put your paddle in at the same time. And if you do that, you'll get where you're going a lot faster. And if one person is a little bit off, then you go a lot slower. And if 3 people are off, then you barely go anyplace. So I guess the quick thing is, let's paddle the canoe efficiently and effectively, and let's steer it in the right direction, and make the future of Hawaii even better than it looks now.
But you know what? I'm not there watching. I'd love to come and watch you guys do this, but I'm thinking that there's a kernel of truth out there that could actually change the way we avoid distraction. That actually changes the way public opinion always seems to lose focus, because you guys are learning about incentives. Mm-hmm. In the game process, you're learning how to keep people focused on this, how to draw them into whatever arrangement you're teaching them. And I wonder if you could articulate, Robert, what have you learned about incentives? What would you, for example, tell the legislature how to incentivize people to stay on focus? What would you tell the voters?
Well, I'm not sure. I know that among the players of our game, focus is not necessarily we've actually designed the system to be very in small chunks. You can go to, do a small amount of activity, just watch a little video and answer a question. So I think one thing to add to what Philip was talking about is that I think sustainability and energy and water and food and all of these things is going to become just so much. It's going to be